rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Oh, hey, bam, thank you. I was going to ask you about that. I noticed that you got it delivered. What I'm talking about is Bam over on Rumble picked up a American Perspective logoed t-shirt recently, and she just had it delivered. So, yeah, I don't push those very often, but you can head on over to store.americanperspective.online. That's store.americanperspective.online, and you can get yours. I've got shirts, and I've got t-shirts, and I've got sweatshirts, and I've got hoodies and a couple other things over there. So you can check it out. store.americanperspective.online. Okay, that wasn't the that wasn't the headline promo. It just happened to fall into the right thing. All right. So, in particular, there was a gentleman who went on the Joe Rogan program. And let's see, what was Mike Benz? He's an investigative researcher. And he brought up an interesting thing with regards to why the mainstream media has the ability, and I'm talking about the American mainstream media. The American mainstream media has the ability to basically put out propaganda without any legal recourse per se, as long as, it's not, libel or something like that, without any real legal recourse now. And I'll get into that a little bit later on. Plus, we have a couple other things that have occurred in terms of the left and their hate, and the hate that they have put out for everything. But, yeah, we'll get into that a little bit more in the program. And Chucky Schumer has said the quiet thing out loud, has said the quiet thing out loud in terms of what they did and why we're dealing with a whole bunch of, or I should say the Trump administration is dealing with a whole bunch of the judges thing. Anyway, let's go ahead and get things kicked off here. First things first, of course, is today's headline sponsor, which is theflagshirt.com. I wear their shirts often during the program. In fact, I think pretty much almost every day, not every single day, but almost every day. And they have some fantastic patriotic styles. Right now, they are holding their Patriotic Heroes sale, where you can get up to 60% off select patriotic styles. One of them on the head, the guy's wearing it right now. He's wearing, no, that's the one that I wore last night. He's the model, the model there. Anyway, head on over to theflagshirt.com. Okay, theflagshirt.com, and check out all of their styles. They've got them for men's, women's. They've got outfits, like put together outfits. And of course, they have things for the kids as well as accessories that are all in the fantastic red, white, and blue of the United States. You should go and check it out. And if you order $75 or more on their page, you'll get free shipping. Okay. But I know that not everybody can afford to purchase $75 or more of gear. Maybe you just don't want to. Okay. But what you can do, of course, is make sure that you get something from theflagshirt.com with my help. And yeah, all you have to do is go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. That's flagshirt www.americanperspective.online, and you'll get presented with a coupon code that you can copy and paste into the promo code box at checkout and get $5 off your order. Go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online and you'll get presented with a promo code that you can copy and paste into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get $5 off your order. Go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. All right. Let's go ahead, and my news is up next for the Pledge of Allegiance. So let's go ahead and please stand. If you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me, and place your hand over your heart. And let's go ahead and follow along with my news and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, we thank you, Mai, for putting that together. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing or reciting the pledge in your style. Take that audio or video file and attach it to an email. Send that email off to fans, FANS, at americanperspective.online. That's fans at americanperspective.online. And I'll be able to take that and get it into the rotation. U.S. Abbey Girl got into the rotation most recently. Okay. So, let's start off with, they've finally figured out, I don't know why they needed a study for this. I really don't. Whatever. They study everything, but they had a study. He put together a study here in the Daily Caller. Turns out Americans were unhappier than ever before under Biden's watch. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. I don't know why they needed a study to figure this one out. I mean, pretty much, yeah, Americans were unhappier. So, the World Happiness Report, this is the 2025 version, the 2025 version of the World Happiness Report, which ranked 147 countries by their happiness levels based on the population's average evaluation of their quality of life. Now, this most recent one runs from 2022 to 2024. And that, of course, is while Joe Biden was in office. And it ranked the U.S. in 24th place, its lowest ever spot. In contrast, Finland led the world in happiness for the 8th year in a row, with the Finns reporting an average score of 7.736 out of 10 when asked to evaluate their lives, according to the report. Anyway, obviously, notably, Americans were left grappling with various issues during Biden's presidency, including the massive influx of illegal aliens, high crime rates, rampant inflation, the burdensome cost of living crisis. Yeah, so, And, of course, following Donald Trump's election victory, some exit polls were showing that voters were deeply discontented with Biden's leadership as president. Yeah, no kidding. So, anyway, the 2025 World Happiness Report's rankings are based on combined data from 2022 to 2024. The number of people in country surveys varies from year to year, but in general, more than 100,000 people, in 140 countries and territories participate in the Gallup World Poll each year, according to its website. In most countries, approximately 1,000 people are contacted by telephone or face-to-face each year for the survey. But they had to figure that out. I mean, seriously, that's why we ended up with Donald Trump. Hello, because people don't people didn't like him. They didn't Biden, not the other. Well, one of the gentlemen who is a constant thorn in Americans' sides, and yes, by that I do mean conservative Americans, because, you know, the left seems to absolutely love this guy. Chuck Schumer. He appeared on a PBS special and was asked a couple of questions in particular about the quote unquote constitutional crisis, which Dems think we're always in a constitutional crisis. They never once think that we're actually okay in our country. However, the article coming out of the Daily Fetched, and also this video that I'm going to play for you here, which comes from Libs of TikTok, or I should say hat tip to Libs of TikTok for posting it. The article here is that since January, Trump has faced 132 legal challenges, and only 2 have been resolved so far. Now, here's the thing. Schumer basically admitted to the result of their plan prior to Trump getting into office. That's right. Schumer admitted to their plan prior to Trump getting into office. Want to know what their plan was? Here, take a listen.
There are those who believe that we are in real time living through an assault on the constitutional order. Do you believe that we are in a constitutional crisis right now?
Yes, our democracy is at risk because Donald Trump shows that he wishes to violate the laws in many, many different ways. The good news here is we did put 235 judges, progressive judges, judges not under the control of Trump last year on the bench, and they are ruling against Trump time after time after time. And we hope that the appellate courts, when it gets up there in the Supreme Court, will uphold those rulings. They restored the money to NIH. They required that 8,000 federal employees have to come back. We're in over 100 lawsuits against them, and we are having a good deal of success. It's only at the lower court level right now.
Yeah. He basically just admitted to the fact that they put in over 200 judges that specifically do not or did not or were going to not follow the Constitution. They were specifically against Donald Trump. Well, that's an interesting angle of attack there. I mean, obviously, this is all about get Donald. Get Donald. They don't care about anything else. They just care about getting Donald Trump. Well, yeah. So anyway, they put in the judges. They specifically put anti-American judges in. The quote is, the good news here is we put in 235 judges, progressive judges, judges not under the control of Trump last year on the bench. Yeah, they're ruling against Trump, he says. No kidding, they're ruling against Trump. They're ruling against Trump because they're actually ruling against the Constitution. These people, Democrats don't care about the Constitution, I'm telling you. They just don't. They don't. We talked about this extensively last night, so I don't want to go too far into the weeds on all of this. But, you know, when have you ever met a Democrat, honestly, who seriously has like really and truly respected the law, followed the law, so on and so forth? I mean, how often? How often do you find a Democrat that actually does that? That is quite interesting to think of it that way. But the truth is that, yeah, the Democrats, they don't care about the law. And in fact, we can see that being reflected over the fact that they have people who are out there getting and doing illegal things and causing all kinds of problems. Now, I haven't really mentioned this, but it's starting to become a bit of a problem. Apparently, and keep in mind, keep in mind, we on the right, we have our boycotts. We have our times where we feel like we, have to protest. Bud Light is a perfect example. I mean, the company, went ahead and did this thing, and we boycotted it. Now, the Democrats, they constantly compare us to them, and trust me, we are no way are we anywhere close to what the Democrats actually are, what they do. But they have been, well, at least the more extreme of their side, has been going around and burning up Teslas and Tesla stores and Tesla's individually owned Teslas. Now, a lot of the people, or a lot of the left, is sitting there saying, well, how is this any different than when we boycotted, when you guys boycotted Bud Light and Kid Rock went and blew up, a whole bunch of Bud Light on screen or whatever, and other people, have gone and done things with Bud Light. Folks, here's the difference. Kid Rock went and bought a crap ton of Bud Light, and then to show his unhappiness with the company, he then blew it up. But that's his own volition. He did it on his own. He bought the product, which, I mean, it's counterintuitive, honestly. But rather than blowing it up in the store, or burning down bars, as Bam points out here on, Bam points out on Rumble, we didn't burn down the bars that sold Bud Light. No, we didn't. All we did, or all we do, and all we have done is, boycott the product, don't buy it, leave it on the shelves. Yes, there were a couple of demonstrations, thrill, but it wasn't in a negative fashion. However, now, what apparently the left has been doing, which this is just utterly disgusting, but here in the Daily Signal, apparently there's a new kind of quote-unquote hate map that is potentially directing the domestic terrorism against Tesla. Here's the map, or here's an image of the map. Go ahead and get a little closer there. So apparently this is a website called DogeQuest. DogeQuest claims to have published the personal information of Tesla owners all across the country. Now I got a question. What do Tesla owners have to do with Elon Musk being part of Doge? And better yet, what does the company Tesla have to do about or with the Elon Musk's work at Doge? There isn't any. There's no reason to be doing this. None whatsoever. And yet, here they are, and they're doing it. And they put up a website about it. Now, apparently, according to the Daily Signal, if you actually go to that site, the DogeQuest site, and you scroll over the map, you can get essentially an image of a Molotov cocktail. It'll change your cursor to a Molotov cocktail. I mean, seriously, How can you even bring up the moral equivalent, okay, or the moral equivalency of this entire situation? Yes, okay, we boycotted Bud Light. Still are, as far as I'm concerned. We boycotted the NFL. Yep, okay. I can understand all of that. That's private people doing their private things. But yet here we have a situation where these folks are they're destroying property that doesn't belong to them. And they're going after Tesla for something that the owner is doing. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand the level of violence here that people seem to want to, the people on the left in particular, seem to want to utilize in order to attempt to, change somebody's mind. I mean, what? How is burning up a Tesla going to do anything to stop Doge from fixing things in our government? Well, I mean, why? I mean, why? This just doesn't make any sense. And this is exactly what the left has done throughout. I mean, again, the BLM riots. You're burning up buildings in Minneapolis. Okay, George Floyd riots. You're burning up buildings in Minneapolis in the freaking part of the city that you live in. You're destroying people's lives who have nothing to do with what it was happening at the time, had nothing to do with the police officers, had nothing to do with that entire situation, and yet there they were, and they were burning down their city for no stupid, for some unknown stupid reason. They were only hurting themselves. This is the intelligence that we have for the left, or from the left. Well, they're no longer going to be left alone like they were under the Biden administration. Pam Bondi has made a major announcement regarding these Tesla terrorists. And by the way, they've already caught a few of these people. Okay. But Attorney General Pam Bondi announced a slew of severe charges yesterday against several violent far-left arsonists who allegedly attacked separate Tesla sites across the country. A trio of anti-Musk agitators are federally charged over the destruction of these Tesla properties. All three suspects will, quote, face the full force of the law for allegedly using Molotov cocktails to firebomb Tesla cars and charging stations, according to the U.S. Department of Justice press release. One of them, who is described as a transgender extremist, was found armed with a suppressed AR-15 rifle and was arrested after throwing approximately 8 Molotov cocktails at a Tesla dealership in Salem, Oregon, according to the Trump DOJ. 41-year-old Adam Matthew Lansky, who uses the trans alias Allison Tesla, was arrested over the Inauguration Day firebombing and February 19th shooting of a Tesla showroom. Lansky allegedly pointed a semi-automatic rifle at a witness during the first Tesla attack. He has been charged by the DOJ with illegally possessing an unregistered destructive device. According to investigative journalist Andy No, he was recruiting LGBTQ activists in the Salem area, and training them with firearms, or trying to train them with firearms. Look at this moron. I mean, seriously. Oh, I already zoomed in. Let's try this again. Whoop. That is not what I wanted. There we go. There's the moron. Ugh, God. I mean, I'm sorry, but these people, again, okay, if you want to protest something, I get it. You can protest something. All right? If you want to protest something, you can protest something. That's fine. Protesting is perfectly fine. But to sit here and say, okay, that you're going to go and destroy something that has nothing to do with what you're protesting. Nothing. I mean, go and shut down streets and shut down towns like they did for, the BLM riots as an example, or the Chaz Chop area. I mean, that really is going to get people over to your side. That's the intelligence that we have, the intelligence level that we are dealing with these people. And it goes beyond just this as well. Another example that's going on, and by the way, too, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, do not put it past these people to escalate more and more of these things. Okay. Do not put it past these people to escalate as things go on, especially should the appellate courts, for an example, and the Supreme Court actually back Trump the way that they should. Constitutionally speaking, that's what they should do. But, like I said, do not put it past these people to get more and more and more violent. Now, one other thing that's been going on that I haven't really discussed is that there are Musk and Trump supporters, most of them being what are called influencers, okay, for Musk and Trump, that are being targeted by swatting. Now, before anybody gets too far out here, swatting is the action of calling the police department and acting like there's something going on at a important person's house. Gunther Eagleman, or Engelman, it's Eagleman. Gunther Eagleman was swatted not too long ago. And that seems to be the flavor of the month right now with some of this. And not only is it that kind of thing, but also the families are being swatted as well. And all too, the judge who just recently prevented DOJ from looking or from investigating Social Security and put an injunction, again, a unconstitutional injunction, who has gone and said, hey, you guys, you're trying to protect the individuals who are supposedly going to access people's private information. And the judge said, hey, you should be public. The people who are accessing, we need to know who that person is. He was talking to the prosecutors at the time, and he's like, hey, we should know who these people are. And the reason why they're not being reported as who those people are is because of the plain and simple fact that their lives and their livelihoods are in danger of being attacked. They are in danger of having some lunatic from the left go after them. And this is part of the reason why people are not, these individuals are not desiring to have their personal information sent out all over the internet for this entire situation. And they're being, the left is going to get worse, folks. They're just going to get worse and worse and worse. Now, you sit here and you wonder about how the mainstream media could have gone and gotten so they lost their integrity. They lost their ability to, you know, speak the truth, because again, when our forefathers, our founding fathers, put together this nation, one of the reasons why they had a reason, or why they had the whole idea of the freedom of the press, came down to the fact that the British redcoats were trying to shut down the rebels, they called them, in the colonies when things were going on. They tried to shut down the printing presses, the pamphlets, all of these different things. Okay. And basically, what ends up happening here is we have lost what is considered to be the fourth wall of protection. And from a free press. And now the idea, and of course, this is something that the, Benjamin Franklin was talking about, the free press needs to be able to, perform its function and question everything. I mean, this was part of the reason why we have the paper known as the Federalist, and why we have the Federalist Papers is because we had a free press. We created the idea of a free press, something that was an outside, yet an outside watchdog over government. And that's completely gone. Okay? That's completely gone. And the reasons for this are, leading into a couple of things here, but the reasons for this are just amazing. First of all, you have the infiltration of the leftism in the news media from our places that we have, like the universities and everything else. But we also have the corrupt media itself isn't necessarily reporting everything. They're certainly not reporting everything honestly nowadays. We basically have moved into a phase where we have the Pravda propagandas going on. Now, one of the most recent examples of this is the fact that the corrupt media is and has gone head over heels in love with this idea of this individual who essentially was or is on their effort, the Trump administration's efforts to try and detain what would be considered the terrorist sympathizers, okay, that are living here in the United States. And one in particular, and this is all coming from, ironically, the Federalist. One in particular here is Badr Khan Suri, who is a terrorist sympathizer. He's a Hamas sympathizer. But one thing that's not being reported, okay, about him is the fact that he has ties to a senior Hamas individual. But you wouldn't know that, of course, because of the misleading headlines and articles. The news has been omitting this information. Now, for an example, Politico's Kyle Cheney and Josh Gersten wrote an article where they said Trump is seeking to deport another academic who is legally in the country, lawsuit says. Except Cheney and Gersten added that Suri says he's being punished because of the suspected views of his wife, who is a U.S. citizen in with Palestinian heritage. However, that phraseology is rather charitable. And that's because of the fact that his wife is actually the daughter of a known Hamas senior advisor named Ahmed Yusuf. Ahmed Yusuf. Suri's wife is Palestinian-born Malfiz Salah. She's a student at Georgetown as well as a former writer for Al Jazeera, which of course peddles Hamas propaganda. Salah previously worked with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Gaza, which is also controlled by Hamas. Her father, Yusuf, was a senior advisor to Hamas leadership, according to National Review. And a Wikipedia page, not that I really count on that, but a Wikipedia page for Yusuf describes him as Hamas's gate to the West because of his extensive connections to Hamas and his years of living in the United States. Now, Salah, who is a U.S. citizen, also posted several pieces of Hamas propaganda on her social media account, indicating a video that, according to National Review, claimed Hamas was forced to carry out the attack because Israel is supposedly a fascist occupation state. Israel has Judaized, anyway, their I'm not even going to go that far. But anyway, it's basically what they're talking about is an apparent attempt at claiming Jews have Judaized Jerusalem, and that Jews are trying to build their alleged temple in the ruins of Al-Aqsa. Okay? Anyway, the point that I'm making is the American mainstream media is not reporting all of the information. They're not reporting the truth. And they've also been allowed now, by law, to utilize what is considered to be what has historically been methods that the U.S. has utilized abroad on foreign entities in terms of propaganda. Now, what am I talking about here? Well, you know, it's better off if I let Mike Benz kind of explain what's going on here and what happened in terms of how this is going on. Now, he appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience, and I'm going to go ahead and play the clip of him explaining all of this.
Are you familiar with the Smith-Mont Act?
Is that the 2011, 2012 thing where Obama allowed people to use propaganda against United States citizens?
Yeah, that was what was done then under Obama was the effective repeal of it. It was called the Smith-Mont Modernization Act. But the modernization got rid of the whole purpose of it, the firewall, because at the time the media and media control was seen as the linchpin crux of winning the Cold War, piping in pro-U.S. Media influence because everything moved after World War II from kinetic warfare and military occupation. You know, we used to militarily occupy the Philippines, for example, after we won the Spanish-American War, but that was banned under international law, territorial acquisition by military force in 1948. So we had to win elections, and we had to influence the passage of laws in foreign countries by having an apparatus inside those countries that influenced the hearts and minds of people, which influenced who they voted for, which then determined the government. So you had to move towards political vassalage rather than military occupation. And what the Smith-Mont Act did is, simultaneous with the creation of this in 1948, Congress recognized the Frankensteinian monster they were creating by authorizing a covert, permanent Department of Dirty Tricks, and this is their phrase, not mine, to do this cloak and dagger, to infiltrate and co-opt the universities, the unions, the media, the politicians, the judges, the whole swarm army, you know, what I have been calling for a long time, the USA Truman Show, because it's, you know, these people in these foreign countries have no idea, you know, how many of the things they interact with that are effectively a movie set being constructed by the U.S. State Department and its sister influence orgs. But the point that I'm getting at here is the Smith-Mundt Act in 1948 said, okay, you guys can do this. State Department can do this. CIA can do this. USAID, when it came along 13 years later, could do this. But so there was a guy named Frank Wisner who was known as one of the godfather figures of the CIA. He's known for creating what was called the Wisner's Wurlitzer, which was it's like a church organ, and that he would brag that he could play the international media like a symphony to make any media narrative go viral in any country on earth because of the suite of CIA proprietary media functions and its distribution network, especially when the U.S. had first mover advantage in radio and print. It's basically the U.S. and U.K. were the only games in town really in having robust radio, film, TV, and print media. So the Smith-Mundt said, okay, you can do that abroad. You can plant fake news stories in France. You can, have propaganda blare into Africa or Western Europe or Central Asia, but that can't come home. You can't psyop our own people with your propaganda organ abroad, because the whole point of authorizing this is that we get cheaper gas, we get import-export markets, we get a high standard of living, because if a foreign government doesn't want to give up its resources or allow a U.S. military base or allow joint partnerships or exports of goods or U.S. multinational corporations to operate there, then the American people suffer economically. So it was always designed to say, listen, you can do this dirty stuff abroad, but it can't come home. We have and even that protection, which lasted for 70 years, and we only lost it a decade ago. We're up against a much actually deeper, darker problem with this USAID scandal, and as people will see increasingly, the scandals that will break open at the Pentagon and the State Department, which is that we have a Smith-Mundt problem for funding and operations. It's not just propaganda. The Blob, our foreign policy establishment, can fund groups that effectively work with prosecutors domestically, or that work at media. Dual use. We give them foreign grants to do media propaganda abroad, but they operate here, or social media censorship to coerce foreign countries to pass foreign censorship laws that explicitly and are intended to attack U.S. social media companies and in U.S. peer-to-peer speech. So we need that protection. If we're going to keep this function at all, we need a hard firewall and absolute grotesque penalties for any violation.
Okay, so that was a small clip so that you could kind of understand just kind of what was going on here. However, there's a couple of things that he unfortunately kind of glossed over. So first of all, the original, the Smith-Mundt, you can't look it up under that. I mean, there's references to it, but the reality of it is the Smith-Mundt is a common name for what is essentially called, I got to find it again here. What is essentially called the foreign, what is it? God, I lost it. Anyway, it was actually a foreign, yeah, it's a foreign, anyway, the actual act was enacted in 1948, and it was designed, of course, as he showed. That's when you have the Broadcasting Board of Governors. Okay, they were yeah, there you go, the U.S. Information and Educational Exchange Act of 1948. Thank you, Dual Helix, for that. I lost it somewhere in my notes here. Anyway, so this act basically set up things like the Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, Middle East Broadcasting Networks. I mean, the whole idea of Sesame Street being broadcasted in, the Middle East, as an example, all came out of this idea of the U.S. Information and Educational Exchange Act of 1948. Now, obviously, since 1948, it has been amended and revised and renewed multiple times throughout history. However, the the restrictions of these, okay, it has been around for quite some time. Yes, Buddy Weiser, also NPR might be a part of that as well. So the most consequential, by the way, amendment came at the hands of Arkansas Senator J. William Fulbright. Now, Fulbright in the 1970s was not a friend of the VOA and Radio Free Europe movement. So he moved, at that time, he moved to restrict them from domestic distribution, basically saying that they should be given the opportunity to take their rightful place in the graveyard of Cold War relics. Now, Fulbright's amendment to the Smith-Month Act was bolstered in 1985 by Nebraska Senator Edward Zirinsky, who argued that such propaganda should be kept out of America. And the reason for this is to distinguish the U.S., quote, from the Soviet Union, where domestic propaganda is a principal government activity. Now, both of these gentlemen put in the amendments based off of, sensible conversations. For an example, American taxpayers shouldn't be funding propaganda that is designed for American audiences. So they added this in, okay, to that act to make sure that any of the propaganda didn't come back to America and be shown to American folks, okay? And that essentially was where this whole Smith-Mundt kind of thing comes into play. Because Barack Obama, well, let's face it, it's not Barack Obama, because Obama just signed the bill. He wasn't one of the ones that went ahead and, created the bill. The bill was created in Congress, and it was created in, under the auspices of what was essentially a bipartisanship. Why they would even consider doing this, I have no idea. However, the bill's text, the auspices of the text, were essentially to try and modernize authorities to fight and win the war against ideas of violence, the war of ideas against violence, extremist ideologies, particularly over the internet and other mediums of information, and for other purposes. Now, this was considered to be, the short title of this change was the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2010. I think it was actually passed in 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. But anyway, they essentially put in a section that essentially stated, and this is literally the title of the section: clarification on domestic distribution of program material. Meaning that they could take the program and program material, and based on these clarifications, here's the clarifications. The first clarification says no funds authorized to be appropriated to the Department of State shall be used for the purpose of influencing public opinion or propagandizing in the United States. So that's the first thing. Okay. However, the provisions of this action shall not prohibit or delay the department from responding to inquiries about its operations, policies, programs, or program material, or making such available to the members of the media, public, or Congress. Then it goes on and it says, no provision of this section shall be construed or interpret, and this is the key, to prohibit the Department of State to engage in any medium of information on the presumption that a United States domestic audience may be exposed to program material. That's the key. Okay? So in other words, what they're saying is, hey, you can't use the funds to basically, you can't use the funds to create programming that comes back to the United States. However, you also can't block the State Department from engaging in this on the off chance that it does happen to come back. So in other words, the wall was torn down. That's the key. Okay? That's the key. And it also continues on and says, such material shall be available within the United States and disseminated pursuant to Section 502 and 1005 of the United States Information and Educational Exchange Act of 1948. That's where it tears it down. Right there is where it tears it down. Now, why anybody would sit here and say, hey, you know what? You guys can create, the CIA or whatever. You guys can create whatever psyops you want to do. But you can't, okay, have it come back to the U.S. Well, that's not what this provision says. This provision is basically saying, well, you're not supposed to use the money to create these programs, but we also can't stop you if the stuff it tends to come back to the U.S. That's how they tore down that wall. Because before, it was strictly prohibited to use that stuff in any sense to if it were to show up here in the U.S. They got rid of it. And this isn't Democrats. I mean, I admit I put it in the title that, you're blaming Obama. Okay. But it's not just his fault. It happened during his term, and he didn't try to veto it either, by the way. But I looked up some of the sponsors. There were 23, 9 originals, and the rest kind of jumped on. And of those 23 that jumped on, there's 11 Republicans, many from places that I was kind of surprised at, like Texas, for an example. So this was a bipartisan effort to go ahead and do this. And they are essentially allowing, by this act, they are essentially allowing propaganda to be spread across the United States as long as the State Department didn't use the funds directly for that purpose. If it happens to show up here, so be it. Folks, these guys are sneaky. These government entities and these government people are sneaky. They don't care. And this is part of the reason why you have to be very careful in terms of what is not only out on the internet, but also what our own trusted sources, mainstream media sources that have been connected for a very long time as our trusted sources of information and news. You can't trust that anymore. This is why independent content creators such as myself, such as all these other folks, they all are important, because many of them are living upon they don't have the ability to absorb the fact that, hey, yeah, we did something wrong. Okay, we'll issue an editorial after it. It doesn't work that way. We can't afford to do that. We've got to be right. We don't have to be first. But this basically changing this one little section of the bill opened up the gates and opened up the floodgates to allow for the United States State Department, which this is part of the reason why the whole COVID thing, they were able to disseminate all that information, the things that were wrong about COVID and all that other stuff. Part of it is because of the fact that this bill was changed under the Obama administration, and it basically was allowed. This is why you can't trust the mainstream media anymore. There are no safeguards against this. And not that I'm necessarily saying that because of free speech, that we should have legal safeguards such as this to do this. However, there should be some restrictions on government in particular. On government in particular, to prevent them from creating a story or creating a propagandist plan or map or whatever and sending it out in the intent of, no, this is no big deal. We're just going to send it out to foreign countries. But if it comes back to the U.S., who cares? This is a very interesting. I mean, first of all, I'm kind of curious as to where in the Constitution under Article 1, Section 8, this actually is an appropriate use of American taxpayer money, because I don't think this falls. Foreign Information and Exchange, Education Act, whatever. I don't seem to recall any of that being a part of Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution as a constitutionally mandated responsibility of the federal government to do this. No, I'm still trying to figure that out. But like everything else that I talk about on this program, it's a government overreach. It's a government expansion. It's government. And by the way, 1948, let me think about who might have been in control in 1948. I think it could have been the Democrats. I could have been wrong, but I think, yeah. Anyway. So, folks, our government, and the more that we start digging into stuff like this, our government is doing some very, very suspect deals that are going on right under our noses, all being paid for by your tax dollars. All right, folks. I got about a minute. Let me go ahead and just hit you with this real quick. Greenpeace. Does everybody know about Greenpeace? I know about Greenpeace. I know about Greenpeace because of their Save the Whales. Well, they may be in some serious trouble. They lost a defamation case against the oil company Energy Transfer during the Dakota Access Pipeline protests. If you recall, they had protests. They were blocking the roads. They were blocking the Dakota pipeline, so on and so forth. Now, this is like years ago. I mean, we're talking years ago on this. Well, they were finally ordered to pay over $660 million for that defamation case. And and this is based off of a North Dakota jury, and they're supposed to pay this amount in damages to the Dallas-based oil and gas company, Energy Transfer, finding that the environmental group was liable for defamation and other claims related to protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline. So this may, depending upon its on its size, it's possible that this might make Greenpeace International and Greenpeace USA disappear. They may not be able to pay it, is what I'm hearing. So, yeah, we'll see what happens here. But anyway, Greenpeace USA was found liable on all the accounts, while the other defendants were held responsible for some of them, but not all of them. So yeah, anyway, Greenpeace may not be around much longer because of it. So yeah, $660 million for defamation. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to Rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure you search up the American Perspective channel, hit that green follow button, to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, before you take off, hit all of those thumbs up and like buttons across all of my outlets, whether it is X, YouTube, Facebook, and, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.